now, you're tuned into RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
What's going on, RBLR Nation? You are tuning in to the Rays version of our podcast. I am your host, Zach, and with me is the co-host, the man with the plan, Mr. Ben Whitelaw. How's it going, brother?
I'm doing pretty great. The U.S. takes on Canada at 3 o'clock today. I'm buzzing for that. How are you?
Oh, fantastic, man. I know nothing about soccer, but I'm going to pay attention to it just for you guys.
Yeah, it's international breaks are amazing. I'm so excited for this. But we have a pretty special guest with us today. You probably know him on Twitter. That's, he's all over Rays Twitter, super popular, integral part of, the fans on there. At Rays Metrics is his Twitter handle, but his real name is Cole Mitchem, and he is a D-Rays Bay contributor now, which is pretty exciting. So we have him on. And how are you doing today, Cole?
I'm great. Thank you guys so much for having me on. I'm excited to have some good conversations.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. You always have really, really awesome, insightful stuff on Twitter. So, we're hoping to hear some of that from you in our little interview we're going to do here. So we're excited.
Yeah, let's get into it.
All right, yeah, good. I guess I will. I'll start with the first question then for you, Cole. When and why did you become a Rays fan?
Yeah, so I grew up in the Central Florida area, so not quite in Tampa, but it was the closest major league team kind of to me. And my dad would kind of take me and my brothers down to the trough, whenever we could get out there. And I'd always played baseball growing up, so it was just kind of a natural fit and didn't really have anyone else to root for. So I slowly started cheering more and more for the Rays as I got older. And it was kind of right when they were starting to blow up and they got some stars like Longoria and Zobrist, and they made that World Series run in '08. So it all kind of worked out together, and then I've been a Rays fan ever since.
Nice, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm glad when proximity is a key factor with a lot of fans. But I'm glad you didn't decide to be one of those fans where it's like, yeah, I live in Florida, but I'm a Red Sox or Yankees fan. That's less than ideal. So
yeah, my dad was mostly a Cubs fan, so I could have went that route, but I don't know. Just going to the Trop and stuff. I've always liked the Trop. I don't think it gets the good reputation that it deserves, but yeah, that's just been my team. I went for the Rays, so I'm glad I did it.
Nice. I feel like the Cubs would be a good choice. They were pretty bad for a while, but they were still likable because they were bad in a way. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I kind of like them a little bit.
Yeah, I think that was their nickname, the lovable losers.
Yeah, exactly. Who was we're kind of jumping around a little forward here because I know you mentioned the stars from that 2018, but who is your favorite player from back then? Did you have one?
Yeah, so it's kind of a basic answer, but it's definitely going to be Longoria for me. The greatest Tampa Bay player ever, and I really felt like I kind of watched his whole career because he was a rookie when they went to the World Series. So, and then I just kind of watched him every year after that, and he was around for so long. And I remember playing baseball in Little League and stuff and trying to emulate his batting stance. And I would listen to that walk-up song that he liked and all of that. It just coincides so well with my fandom, just Longoria being the face of the team back then.
Right, yeah, that walk-up song was pretty cool. That was I think, wasn't it an electric violin?
Yeah. I don't even know what it was called, but I just remember I remember back then you would have iPod touches or iPod nanos and stuff, and I remember I paid $1.29 for that song. I was I need to have it.
Back when you couldn't just look it up on YouTube.
Exactly. Those were the days.
Okay, we got a note from Eureka. It was Down and Out by Tantric. Is that what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, I think. I don't know if the song was that good, but that one part he had was just pretty hype. So.
Oh yeah, yeah. Awesome, just hearing that song, and him walking up to the plate, that's a good feeling. That's a nostalgic feeling. I miss that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you don't really like. I feel like now we don't really have someone where you can just hear a song and you're like, yep, it's this person's time to be up to bat.
I know. Yeah. Well, I don't know. Do you guys know what Wander Franco's walk-up song is? Because it looks like he's going to be the longest tenured guy. So
Yeah, I have no idea, and
I'm not
that's
sure
kind
either.
of. I guess we'll find out.
Yeah.
Pay more attention to it next year for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely. And if and when they, I mean, I guess they will retire Longoria's number. They would have to, right? Like he's like the first franchise player. I feel like they should retire his walk-up song too. Is that like a thing? Has anybody done that before?
It is now. All right. Well, yeah. So I mean, it's gonna kind of feel like we're jumping around a little bit, but I want to get into like more of what got you into sports writing and kind of the being on social media as you are.
Yeah, that's a good question. And so basically I started up my Twitter account maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, I want to say, but I didn't like have a big following or anything. It was just kind of like a side thing where I could follow a bunch of like baseball reporters and sites that I like to read and stuff like that, and just kind of get baseball news like on the side because I was a fan. And as I was learning more about the game and whatnot, I just kind of used it as a platform to put my thoughts out there, really. And slowly over time, I just kind of connected with more people and kind of slowly gained some more traffic on my page. And then before I knew it, like I want to say really like last season, like 2020, is when I was starting to get like kind of a lot of followers, and I just really enjoy like looking into the team and researching stuff and into player stats and all that good stuff, and just kind of kept it going. And you know, I just love the more people I can connect with and can reach out to, and more opinions and everything like that. I just love kind of talking about baseball and thinking about it. So that's kind of how it started. And then, yeah, like you said, I recently just started writing for D-Rays Bay. It's a great website with a ton of really knowledgeable Rays writers. I'd highly recommend any listener to go check it out. And I wasn't really like seeking that out. Like I didn't like have a plan to get into like writing about sports or anything like that. And to be honest, I've never really enjoyed writing at all in previous life either. So really, it just kind of came to me, and I just kind of joined it as an opportunity for another platform for me to dig into things a little bit further, because Twitter's got the character limit and all that, and so you know, writing on like an official site like that kind of gives me a bigger platform to get more thoughts out. So I enjoy it for sure so far.
That's awesome, and the fact that it's even cooler, the fact that you weren't seeking out for it to end up, you know, kind of the way that it has. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it just kind of fell in my lap, to be honest. And I definitely don't think that I'm like a good writer or anything like that. Like that's not really my strength or anything. But I really just kind of use it to just kind of dump thoughts and just kind of you know, put interesting stats and just kind of like logically go through my thoughts. So if you're looking for like well-written essays with beautiful language and all of that, like I'm not your guy, but I may be able to give you like an interesting stat or two.
No, that's awesome, man.
Yeah, and your Twitter's definitely full of some really interesting stuff. And I feel like Twitter is a much, and again, nothing against Reddit, but I feel like Twitter's like a little bit more digestible, and the people are a little bit less combative, you know? So I think, you know, Twitter's a really great platform for that. And then also jumping onto D-Rays Bay, like they reach such a large audience, you know, for people that aren't even on Twitter, like people that just look at Rays news and stuff like that, you know, they're usually near the top of the Google searches. Yeah. Like D-Rays Bay is awesome. I've been like lurking on there for years, and seeing your stuff on Twitter is really cool too. So, yeah, it's just cool to see like that stuff happen organically, like how you just kind of, you know, became a writer after, you know, following your passions and doing stuff on Twitter. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I appreciate that for sure. Yeah, but it's opened my eyes too, because I didn't really know like about all the platforms like you mentioned and where Rays fans reside and how many of them are there, but there's quite a few out online and everywhere that are just voicing their opinions and some really knowledgeable fans too. So the more that I kind of look into things and grow and learn about the Rays, the more cool people I meet and the more stuff I learn because of all the different opinions and stuff that's out there. So yeah, I'm thankful and I'm always open to reading anything I can about the team.
Nice. So speaking of the team, we're in lockout right now. It's a little irritating. Fans want to see some news. We want things to happen. We want the negotiations to get the ball rolling. But looking back at this past season with the team, was there a favorite moment that you had from the 2021 season?
Yeah, that's definitely a good question. And I'm going to give you an answer that may be a little bit of a surprise, but I think what happened in the moment really just encapsulates the Tampa Bay Rays just perfectly. And that moment was in Game 2 of the ALDS against the Red Sox. In the first inning, Jordan Luplow hit a grand slam off Chris Sale, and it gave the Rays the lead 5-1 or 5-2 maybe. And they had already won Game 1, and then when he hit that, I was just thinking man, this is really happening. They're rolling through the Red Sox, and this game looks like a win. Unfortunately, that is the exact opposite of what happened, as they went to lose all 3 of their next games. But I just think that such a random player like that, who they just picked up at the trade deadline, who has no real experience, for many casual fans even know who he is. He's not even a full-time starter on the team, but here he is batting 5th for the team with the most wins in the American League, and he hits a grand slam off Chris Sale to give him a huge lead in the beginning of the game. I think he gets pulled later in the game too, or something. It's just such a perfect Rays moment, and I really wish the ending would have turned out better. But in that moment, I think that was when I was maybe the most excited I was watching the Rays the whole season.
Yeah, I think that kind of in our chat, in the chat that we have as for our podcast, it's I think that was basically how a lot of us felt once he hit that slam. We were all like, "Oh yeah, wow, look at Tampa! We're doing exactly what we all thought we were gonna do." And yeah, you nailed it right on the head. That's not what happened at all.
Yeah, I know. It was just that was kind of the final peak of the season. That was one of the last good moments.
But, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's that was kind of my moment, and yeah, that's what I remember most. When I first read the question, that was what popped into my head, so I had to go with it.
Well, you probably. Go ahead, Ben. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I agree. It's such a Rays moment for a guy like Luplow to come into a playoff game, hit a grand slam off of one of the biggest names out of all the starting pitchers in. Not just the American League, but baseball as a whole. So I feel like it's also equally just as much of a Rays moment that he was traded away, for someone that we know almost nothing about. And I think it was Ronnie Simon, right, from the Diamondbacks.
Yeah.
He's got some interesting tools. I was looking into him the other day, but that's just how the Rays operate. And they're going to go find another Luplow and another Mike Brasso type player. They're going to get the guys that they need, but it's yeah, it's the Rays way.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mike Brasso actually had a very similar moment in 2020 playoffs with that home run against Chapman. Yeah, and then he gets traded away too. So it's kind of funny.
Yeah, so I mean, just as a follow up to that question, then I think you kind of know what's coming. What was your least favorite moment from last season?
Yeah. Yeah, that one's tough. I gotta just probably go with really just the series, just how the series ended with the Red Sox as a whole, or really just that Game 4 loss. They had such a good comeback, and with Franco and Arozarena getting huge hits down the stretch in the late innings, and especially I believe Wander tied the game in the 8th. He got it to 4-4. And with a double, and he was sitting on second base with no outs, and they just could not get him in. I think Lau struck out, and some more people got out, and it's just kind of heartbreaking. And I was like, man, you couldn't get one more across with the guy in scoring position with no outs. But but then it just kind of it just didn't go their way in the extra innings and whatnot. It was pretty crushing because the game started off poorly, and then they kind of got your hope back, and then it just fell apart once again. So it was tough to watch unfold.
Was that the game with the ground rule double that Renfroe bounced out of the park, or was that the game after?
What? I'm not sure if that was game. It was definitely one of Game 3 or Game 4. Now I'm drawing a blank on which one it was. That was tough to watch too. I couldn't believe that rule. Yeah, that was really
we've talked
rough.
on that multiple times on this show.
Yeah,
I think about it like once a week, honestly. Like the rule, they called it correctly based on the rule, but the rule itself is wrong. Like you can't reward a player for bad defense, but whatever. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole again. We're good. We'll move on from that. So going back, talking about the 2021 season here, do you have like a favorite player on the current roster, or does that change frequently, or?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, the beautiful thing about the Rays is that they're such a great like full team. Like they've got amazing depth and so many great contributors on both sides of the ball. So it's tough to know. Like it's sometimes it's tough for Rays fans to pick like who is their favorite player. But and I kind of found myself in a similar situation. I was just trying to think about like who really is my favorite player. I just like so many of the guys, but I'm gonna go with the one guy who really separates himself from the rest of the team, and not necessarily because of their on-field performance, but because of the other things, the interaction with the fans. And I'm going to say Brett Phillips.
Oh my God.
That guy is just too fun to watch. And like, it has been just an absolute joy having him on the team. The acquisition to get him was like such a minor thing, and I didn't really know of anything about his personality really before he came over. And it just seems like the longer he's here, the more fans he's got and the more people love him. And he's just like the perfect bench player for a great team like the Rays.
Cole, I would like to thank you for coming in and saying that, because I have been fighting so long because he is also my favorite player on the Rays. And I'm the only one that ever says that.
Right. Yeah, because I think it's just a thing where you just have to accept that he's not one of the better players, but he's just so great to have around. He just really makes watching the Rays so fun. I just love it. Like anytime he does an interview after the game, or like he's active like on social media and all that, like I just have to watch it. Yeah, I just find myself like, man, he's just like, he's contagious. His energy, it's great.
Yeah, and it's almost like it's not just like you said. It's more of the off the field stuff. And the fact that when he's on the field and he's doing what he loves, you can tell that it's what he loves to do. He's not like some of the bigger names where you can tell they're playing it just because they're good at it, not because they love it. Like, and with him, you can tell that he genuinely loves the game of baseball.
Right. Yeah. Because it's tough because there's so many good players. Like, it's just tough. Like, how am I going to decide between a Rosarena and Franco and Brandon Lau and like all these pretty much stars that the Rays have now. And, I'm just going to go ahead with the guy who I think has the best personality and is the funniest player, and Brett Phillips.
I love that answer, Cole. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, he brings so much like to the team that you can't really measure or quantify. So it's interesting because like, your Twitter is pretty like analytics heavy. I mean, your name is @RaysMetrics. So it's cool, and it's really interesting that, Phillips is your favorite player. So that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, maybe it's sounding like I think he's like a bad player or something. I'll give him a little bit of credit. Like I think what makes him useful to the team is he kind of knows like his role. Like he's not really a guy who has like crazy potential to like turn into something like great really, but the tools that he does possess are extremely useful to the team. Like his base running, his defense is excellent, and he can like pop a home run here and there against a right-hander. He can hold his own against right-handed pitching. So I think that it's like kind of the perfect bench outfielder for a competitive team, because it's not like we're going to be able to get him that many at-bats with all the good other outfielders we have. So I think his role is quite perfect for where the Rays are at.
Definitely. And he plays to his strengths, he doesn't try to do too much. He does his job really, and he has fun doing it, and he's, bringing everybody else up with him when he's, bringing the energy. So it's a pretty cool thing to see.
Exactly.
Yeah, and now to follow up on that, because I liked your answer so much, we got to see if it's just as good for this one. Who is your favorite non-Ray player?
So yeah, that one's tough. I don't know so there's a lot of players to choose for that one. So I don't know if I'll nail your same guy. But I'm gonna go with Juan Soto as my favorite non-Ray. And I just think that, like, really, I'm just kind of enamored at what he has been doing these last couple of years, because he is so incredibly young. I don't even know how old he is, but like he broke into the league at like 19 and was like one of the best hitters in the league right when he did it at that age. And the way he goes about it, like with this absolutely absurd plate discipline, like he just will not chase, and his contact is amazing. He just has like what I would say are like the best plate skills in the entire league. And then on top of that, he's got like pretty good power to go along with it. I think he's had like 30 home run seasons in the big leagues already. So
yeah,
I just think I think he is just the prime example of like a young superstar who is going to be so good for so long. Because like even if something starts to dwindle, like say he loses some of that contact ability or some power in his stroke with age, like he has so many other like crazy good tools to where I think he's going to be like incredible for so long. And I think he plays a pretty good left field. I think is where they have him most of the time too, on top of it. So yeah, I just think that that's the type of guy who is like everything you could ever ask for in a franchise player. And I really think that that's a great player. And I know that he's actually kind of getting close towards the end of his team control with Washington. And I think that letting him go would be, or trading him even would be a mistake. I think they need to do everything they can to extend that guy for sure.
Oh yeah, he's a generational talent. Like to be able to, have that eye and to walk, more than you strike out is it's like unheard of really. And he's not doing it in the way that like, who was that guy? Williams Astudillo, the guy for the Twins a couple years back, who would just like put the ball in play any chance he got. Like he's doing it with power, and he's got great speed. Like he does so much so well. I feel like if they let him go, whether it's trade or just let him walk in free agency, that would be a huge mistake. Like he is really one of the most valuable players in the league by far.
Yeah,
and he's 23.
Yeah, 23, and he's already had 2,000 plate appearances in the major leagues.
That is wild.
So like that's like Shane McClanahan, a great young pitcher for the Rays, is 24. Like that's just puts it into context. It's really nuts
and he was a rookie last year.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like that's wild. I like that answer too, though. That's not a bad answer at all.
Yeah. Well, now I got to know who your guy is.
Oh, see, I like Fernando Tatis. Mine is more for kind of off the field stuff as well, just because it's on the field but also off the field. Like he just doesn't care. Like he doesn't care about the traditional way of baseball. He's gonna play it because he enjoys playing it and he's good at it. Like
yeah, I love that. That's another guy who right when he came into the league was just a superstar right away, and that is just awesome to see.
Yeah, just instantly lit the league on fire. Like he's great. I kind of like Sergio Romo. I feel like he's my favorite. He used to be a Ray, so I don't know if that counts, but that was like the first time I saw a slider that could move like that, and I'm like, I have to learn how that happens. Like I have to know how that works, and it's crazy to see that. Like it's pretty cool.
That's wild that you say that, because he used to be one of my favorites when he played for the Giants before he even came to the Rays. When he played for San Francisco, now he's on the Athletics now, I think. But when he played for San Francisco, he used to be, that beard was him having the full beard. I was like, that is awesome.
That's a cool answer, and he's kind of like a bit of like a trailblazer, because I believe Romo was kind of the first opener that the Rays went for.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's definitely a good answer. He kind of represents like what the Rays are all about in a certain way.
Yeah, he's got a great personality too, but that slider is, really, really cool. I like that a lot. I guess there's really no good segue for this question here, so I'll just get into it. Is there someone on the Rays team that you think overperformed or was a little bit overrated this past season?
Yeah, that's a tough one because you never want to talk bad about your own team, right?
Right.
But yeah, so where I kind of wanted to use this question to kind of explain my thoughts on the catching situation that the Rays are in, because I think they're in an interesting spot with their catchers.
I like where this is going.
So both of them, when I see overperformance, one of the first guy who came into my mind was Zunino, because we as Rays fans know when he first came over, I mean, that guy, he couldn't really hit anything. It didn't look good. And then all of a sudden you have his 2021 season where he's like randomly one of the best hitters on the team. And I don't doubt that he definitely made changes to improve his hitting profile and whatnot. But there's just some things where I think that we may see some regression. So he was one of the leaders in baseball in home runs per fly ball percentage. And what that kind of means is a ton of his fly balls that he hit ended up going over the fences. And it's kind of a statistic that you can use to regress people to the mean. So if they kind of come out with a high value there, then you can kind of expect some regression. Or if it's on the other side, if it's a low, then you can kind of expect some improvement going forward. It's kind of how BABIP works in a little bit of a way when talking about hitters. But that's something where I think we may see some of the power numbers come back, even though Zunino's power, don't get me wrong, is freaking legit. That guy can spank the ball. But I just think that the way he was able to produce that amount last season is probably not something I would expect moving forward, especially with his kind of previous track record of struggles and all the strikeouts and whatnot. Also, he performed extremely well against left-handed pitching, to literal historic levels. If you ever look at his stats against lefties past year, they'll kind of blow your mind. So I don't know if we can expect that again. And his stats against right-handers were kind of more in line with his previous career numbers too. So I would love to see him kind of still kind of put together maybe a league average season at the plate. I think that's possible, or maybe even a bit above that. But I'm not really sure that I expect anything like we saw in 2021 again. And also, I guess I'm going to give two answers to this. Is kind of coincidentally the other catcher for Tampa Bay, Francisco Mejia. He had a pretty solid season as a backup, no doubt, in 2021. But there's some things that I think that may indicate some regression moving forward. His approach at the plate is, just frankly, it's kind of really bad. He swings at everything. Yeah. He chases all kinds of pitches. And I think he got a little bit lucky on some of his batted balls dropping in for base hits. And whatnot, because he's not really a guy who can really hit the ball too hard either. And those two things put together, somebody who doesn't have great power and also somebody who reaches out of the zone as much as him, I'm just not sure I love that combination for a young hitter. But he does do some other things pretty well. Contact rate is definitely one of them. He avoids strikeouts at a pretty good clip. So the fact that he's able to do that and the fact that he's able to be at least a competent catcher does give him value in the big leagues, no doubt. But yeah, overall, I'm thinking that maybe the whole catching situation in Tampa Bay is going to look a little bit worse in 2022, which is interesting because Mike Zunino is a free agent after next year. And Mejia is going to be he's going to go jump into arbitration too, and he'll get a kind of a pretty big pay bump when he does it. So it wouldn't totally shock me if neither of them are here in a year, after 2022. So I don't know. It's just kind of I think this is an interesting season to watch for the catchers in Tampa Bay, and I'm going to be watching to see if they stick around in 2023 as well.
I definitely feel like Zunino did overperform offensively. Like he was really like you said, like the home run to fly ball rate was off the charts, and that's not, something that's typically sustainable. But I feel like his defense was, pretty par for the course in terms of his career. Like he had a couple, he was a little bit down when he first came over to Tampa. In terms of his defense, but he rebounded nicely. I believe that last season he was okay, but this season he was phenomenal. He was near the top of the league in like framing and stuff like that. Do you see his defense, possibly falling off this season too, or do you think he could, sustain that performance in 2022?
Yeah, that's a great point, and I think it's something that's very important to talk about when Zunino's name is brought up, because I don't really see any reason to think his defense will decline moving forward, other than maybe his age. He is into his 30s now, so maybe you could expect a little bit, but I don't know. I think catcher defense ages pretty well generally, and I really see no reason for Zunino to regress in that area. And I do think the Rays absolutely love his defense and like what he can provide to a young pitching staff. I think that they almost look at him as kind of like another coach on the staff, because so at the beginning of last offseason, Zunino was actually a free agent then too, and he just was coming off of 2 tough years in Tampa Bay, and a lot of fans were kind of speculating, like, who are they going to bring in to be their catcher? Are they going to trade for someone? Are they going to sign someone? But really what they did was they ended up just signing Zunino again to a cheaper deal, because I think that they realized that maybe A, the options out there weren't too great, and B, that they just loved his defense and what he brought to the team, to what it was just worth it. Even if he still wasn't able to really hit, they just really value that rock behind the plate that he was able to provide. So I'm really looking forward to watching him back there again next season.
Yeah, that's I think for me it was whenever you have someone that comes out and has their best offensive season, like offensive output season at 30 years old, you're probably thinking that's not something that can be replicated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll have to see how it unfolds. I mean, maybe they really did unlock something on the power front, and which would be great to see, because I mean, last year he really was one of the best catchers in the entire league, and I don't think not even one Rays fan would have told you they saw that coming. So.
Oh no, without a doubt, I agree with you on that. But on the flip side of that, who's someone in 2021 that you thought wasn't as or didn't perform to what they should, and will have a bounce back or return in 2022?
Yeah, that's another really good question, and I think that we'll definitely see a lot of different players kind of take steps forward, because the Rays are just so good with developing players and young players in particular. And one guy that I want to highlight here is Luis Patino. And I think that when he was kind of brought over to Tampa Bay, he quickly kind of got like lost in the shuffle a little bit in the minds of Rays fans, because Shane Mcclanahan came out of the gates like roaring and looked like an ace right away. And then you had pitchers like another young guy in Drew Rasmussen who looked really good at the end of the year. And then they call up Shane Baz for the playoffs. And it's kind of like a lot of people were looking at these young starters. And one guy who I think slipped under some people's radars was Luis Patino. I think that he had a really strong season. And the Rays made some meaningful tweaks to his pitch mix after coming over from San Diego. They added some fastball movement, some ride up in the zone to his heater, which I think is a really great change. It's going to make it more effective than it was in San Diego. And also they've tinkered with the shape of his slider. He now throws it more firm, and I think it really has helped with his command of the pitch. And just as a whole, his fastball and slider like combination, the fact that he has 2 pitches that are both that good is just a great like building block moving forward for a young pitcher, in my opinion, because it gives him so many options on things he can do, whether, if he wants to kind of focus on like improving command or some kind of third pitch or whatnot. The fact that he has 2 pitches that are that good at this age, I think just means so much for his future moving forward. And one thing that people forget with Pitino is really how young he is.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, like he is younger than Shane Baz. A lot of people don't even know that. but he actually is. And but he's already been in the big leagues for 2 years. He's ridiculously young, and I think he's supremely talented. And I think that last year was kind of a little bit of an experimental year where the Rays were tweaking with some of his pitches, and they sent him up and sent him down, and they had him in different roles, I think, to just kind of get his feet wet in the big leagues. But it really wouldn't surprise me if this year coming forward, he kind of grabs hold of a rotation spot and keeps it the whole year. I think that he is talented enough to do that.
No, definitely. He's got the tools. Like he has a really plus fastball. Like that thing can move, and it's got the velocity as well. The slider is really fantastic. Like those are two, pretty far above average like pitches in terms of like, what he throws compared to other guys. But I feel like the thing that he needs is either some kind of variation to his fastball to make, so we can almost have like, two different kinds of fastballs he throws, or maybe add in some kind of changeup or a curveball. Do you, see him adding a third pitch heading into this season?
Yeah, I think that it's fair to assume that he will, just because it does, it's kind of been proven in research and just kind of in kind of common sense that having three pitches makes it easier to get to move through lineups and to attack like both righties and lefties, and it just gives you more options as a pitcher. So I think that we'll see him continue to try to find something that he's comfortable with. And it's interesting because in a couple, so last year he was really heavy, like four-seam slider. That was just basically what he had, but he had some starts where he was tinkering with a bigger breaking ball, like a curveball that had more drop than his slider, and also he was playing around with a sinker that looked completely different than his four seam, to be honest. So sometimes differentiating between four seam and sinker can be tough because the pitches can kind of bleed into each other movement wise, but he was throwing a fastball that looked a lot different than his four seam, but he didn't keep it up very long. So, that could be for a number of reasons. Maybe he wasn't comfortable with it. And he also threw a couple changeups from here to there. So I think that he was kind of working with the coaching staff and Kyle Snyder to kind of find something he was comfortable with. Maybe they just kind of deemed that it's just best to go with his two best pitches for now with four-seam slider, because he was still able to get good hitters out in the big leagues. I mean, he threw a lot of innings and was effective. And so maybe now kind of moving into spring training and stuff, they'll really hone in on something for him to focus on. But yeah, I think that I would expect him to kind of switch a little bit something up to try to make an improvement going forward.
No, I definitely hope he adds a third pitch, and I agree with that. And I think if he, still struggles with it in 2022, like worst case scenario, he's like one of those 2 to 3 inning guys who can get through a lineup once, because, with two pitches, the first time through, it's usually not as bad. It's kind of like Drew Rasmussen in that way, where they still have they got quality stuff, but, the guys in the big leagues are quality hitters, so they're going to be able to pick up on things. And if you're only able to throw two pitches, they can definitely hit that around. But I really hope he adds a third pitch. I think he could be a really great, bounce back guy, or he might take a big step forward. And I don't know, I'm just excited for it because I know that he struggled a bit against lefties. Like he was totally fine against righties, pretty much all year. I just pulled it up real quick. He had a 3.53 FIP against right-handed pitching, but a 6.04 against left-handed pitching. And the thing that stands out is he had the strikeout and walk rates and stuff. So against righties, a 28% strikeout rate versus a 4% walk rate. But then lefties, he had a 14.9 strikeout rate and a 14.2 walk rate. So, getting something like a sinker or a changeup, something that's kind of like moving away from a left-handed hitter that he could throw to lefties would be, ideal. So I guess we'll see. I like the sinker. I feel like he could work with that because it still has that, velocity. So I think he could get some pretty good movement on it.
Yeah, that's a really great point. I think that righty lefty split is just really telling on where he can kind of improve moving forward. And I think it's also a really good sign that he's so good on righties because I do think that his foundation with those two pitches is excellent. So yeah, I'm really excited to see kind of how the Rays go about it and what they come up with, because he's just a special arm that I think that it won't be too tough to find some kind of third pitch he's comfortable with.
Yeah. And, even his FIP, expected FIP, ERA, they're all fantastic against righties. So If he can just get something to throw to lefties, that would be awesome. So I'm excited for him and for Drew Rasmussen too. I think those are two guys who could really, develop a third pitch and take a major step forward. So that kind of leads into this next question a little bit. I just want to get your thoughts on some of the projections that we've seen for the Rays. We've seen the Steamer and Zips projections through Fangraphs, and Baseball Reference has their own thing. Do you have any general thoughts or player specific thoughts about some projections for this next season?
Yeah, definitely. So, kind of my thoughts on projections is that, for one, I think that a lot of fans will kind of not really there's some biases when it comes to them in the minds of fans, because people will see them and they're like, oh, well, he was better last year. Why is he projected so low, or vice versa and whatnot. But I do think as a whole, projections are really important to understand from somebody if you're trying to evaluate the game of baseball, because they do a better job of contextualizing performance better than the human brain could ever do. Because Zunino actually is a perfect example. For me, it's so hard for me to try to get a gauge on what he's going to do next season because of the extreme wide splits in the past couple of years as far as his performance goes. But a projection system it has the knowledge of what has happened to players who have done similar things in the past, and they can kind of use those to give out some kind of decent median expectation for him moving forward. So I think that if I had to guess where Zunino's production is going to fall next year, I would fall closer to what a projection spits out rather than what he did last year or the year before that. I think that is kind of where they can be really useful when you're thinking. It kind of just gives you a check on how to evaluate a player and what is the most probable path forward for them based on previous history. So I'm a fan of projections. As far as a certain one in particular, I think that there's pros and cons with all of them, and I don't really know all the differences between all of them, but I think it is helpful to look at all of them to kind of get an idea of what they think of certain players and teams and whatnot. But I will say that the Rays in particular, I believe, are kind of hard to project, and I think they're more difficult than a lot of other teams in the league. So one reason I think is that the Rays always have major contributions every year from their young players. And young players are the players who have the least amount of big league track records. Therefore, they're kind of the hardest to project. Shane Mcclanahan is a really good example of this. I don't know what he was projected to do last year off the top of my head, but I can bet that it wasn't as good as what he actually did. So, but I would say that the Rays probably knew that Mcclanahan had the stuff to be a big league starter. I bet you that, they were excited about him and they thought that he was going to anchor down a rotation spot just based on their internal metrics, what they know about his pitch shapes, his command, and things like that. Whereas a projection system, all it has is all it had to use was Mcclanahan's AA stats from 2019 or something, and there was just no way it was going to be an accurate reflection on what he was actually going to provide to the Rays. So that's kind of an example of how the Rays and how they're so young and constantly churning young players through the system is a little bit of a way that I don't think projection systems are always going to be able to get. Another thing that I think is a way for the Rays to you'll kind of see the Rays are constantly beating their projections in recent years. And I think that what I just mentioned is one reason. And another reason you may see that is because the Rays use their roster in a way that is extremely efficient in order to get wins. They have so many players who are really, really skill specific. We were talking about Brett Phillips. Brett Phillips is a guy who can draw a walk and hit a homer against a right-handed pitcher, and his defense is excellent. And that is what he's good for. If he's up there against the lefties, he's not gonna do much. And if you're batting him high in the order or in big spots, it's probably not best to expect something big there. Austin Meadows is another guy who I think, for example, if the Rays are facing a tough righty and they've got Meadows in the DH spot, he's one of the most valuable players on that team, on the team for that day, because he's really good against right-handed pitching, and he he's not the best in the outfield. So when he's DHing, he's valuable to the team because they can put a better defender in the outfield. But, for example, this is something the Rays don't do very often, but when Meadows is out there against a left-handed pitcher and he's out in the field, he actually hurts the team quite a bit on those days because he's one of the worst hitters in the lineup, weirdly, on that certain day, and he's also hurting the team on defense. So when a projection system sees a guy like Meadows, it just kind of throws out like a overall, like, okay, what's he going to do like over the course of the long season? But the Rays have so many like interchanging parts on the day-to-day basis, all these different matchups, to where I think that they actually are able to squeeze a little more juice out of each player individually because they all have like such specific skill sets in their profile. Hopefully that kind of made sense. But like, if you kind of think about the Rays, they don't have many, like, I don't know if they even have one player who's just kind of like meh at everything. All of their players like have really specific strengths, and that's definitely not on accident. And I think it's a great way to build the team, and it's something that projection systems are not always going to grab.
Yeah, you use the word efficiency, and I think that's a great way to like describe this team and the way they've built this roster. It's so cool to see how they progress from year to year, finding guys who a lot of fans haven't heard of and turning them into something. I know you've written about like relievers for D-Rays Bay that they might like based on like slider or pitch shapes and stuff like that. So it would be really interesting to see like their internal like projection systems that they have within their own front office and their own prospect rankings, just because like they know their players so well and they know those specific things that they do well. So I don't know, I'm just excited. I really like that answer, and it made me even more excited for Zach's question here that he's got about coming up.
Yeah, so real quick before I say that, this is why I love that it's Ben and I on this show, because the word that Ben picked up on was efficiency. The one that I picked up on was no players are meh at everything.
Yeah.
So you could tell like the difference in Ben and I love that. But yeah, my next question, kind of to touch on your answer where you said the projections can't really pick up on what prospects are doing. Who is a prospect that you're most excited for?
Yeah, so my answer for that is gonna be Shane Baz. I think that he is no doubt the best prospect that the Rays have, and I think that he has every tool you could possibly want in a young pitcher. His pitch mix is awesome. There's like potentially 4 plus pitches to his profile. His fastball, the pitch that he will most likely throw the most, is maybe the best of all of them. I mean, it's got like so many interesting traits, and I just really think that like everything that he possesses is I don't even know how you could ask for a pitching prospect to show you more than the Shane Baz has. And kind of that final hurdle that he was needing to get over was his command, and because he was kind of still walking a lot of people in AAA, and then bang, 2021 came around and he was just pounding the zone every level. He started in AA, then moved to AAA, and then got up to the big leagues. And I think it shows you the Rays' confidence in him, where they started him in Game 2 ahead of many other options for that certain spot. I just think that he, quite frankly, is the best pitching prospect in baseball, and that he's going to be the ace of the team by the end of the year. That's I don't know if that's a hot take or not, but that's kind of where I see him. I just think the sky's the limit for that guy.
I mean, if you know anything about the show, hot takes are one of our things.
Apparently, yeah. No, I love that. I love that you said that about Baz, because we actually just talked about some pitchers last week, and I was covering Baz, and I like based on his his projections, which can be tricky with a young guy like you said, but and what he's done in the big league so far, his floor is almost like Rookie of the Year potential. When you look at the last starter who won Rookie of the Year, which was Michael Fulmer with Detroit in 2016, like his projections, Shane Baz's projections are what Fulmer essentially put up to win Rookie of the Year. So I really think, with the Rays, how they're able to get a little more out of their players than the projections usually have, like he's probably going to be, like you said, one of the best pitchers on this staff. I think I'm so excited for him. I can't believe the Pirates messed that up. Like that is insane to give up on a player who threw less than 70 professional innings in the minors. Like, and you're just going to throw him in in a deal that, oh my god.
Let's not forget, we also got Glasnow and Meadows.
Yeah, but
just more people that are like, yeah, we don't want them. You gave us
it's crazy
one
to give up on a teenager.
Yeah, and then not only that, but they gave us a potential Cy Young. Every time that he's healthy, he's up there in talks for Cy Young until he gets hurt, granted. And now we got another young kid who, in the future, is going to win a Cy Young.
Oh yeah,
it's ridiculous. I'm pretty sure at the time of that trade, I saw Pirates fans on Twitter like super excited. They were like, "We got our next ace! Like, we got Chris Archer and all this stuff." And I don't even think it took 1 year for Glasnow to become better than Archer.
Exactly.
We won the trade like a couple months later because Glasnow was already better. And it's like, oh, we also have this teenager who has some of the best stuff in the minors, along with a 30 home run bat in Meadows coming up. So it's just ridiculous how they were able to pull that off.
And not to mention, Archer came back.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we're gonna turn into I'm looking up the name of the former Pirates GM, but a Neil Huntington fan podcast, because we love his work. We love what he's done for the Rays, and we're gonna be the official Neil Huntington fan podcast. So
there you go. I don't know if they have traded with each other since. Maybe
I don't think they should.
Maybe they've done some minor stuff, but I could definitely see their GM or somebody, their owner, just saying absolutely not, hang up the phone.
Yeah. All right. So, if the prospects that we have that are coming up, that, if they don't work out super well, a good way the Rays might try to, hedge that bet would be by going into free agency or, making a trade. So is there, I want to know one bat and one arm that you'd like the Rays to go after for this season?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think that it's a good question because I don't think the Rays are done adding to their roster, even though their roster is it's pretty good right now. They could start the season today and they could win a bunch of games. They have, they've got pretty much everything they really need. But I think that they're going to do a little bit of fine-tuning on the edges, bringing in some guys, maybe also trading some guys, because I don't know if the roster's exactly optimized to how they would kind of like it right now. One part of the team that I think they're going to look to improve upon is the lineup. And like you said, you asked me about a bat that I think they should bring in. Eric Neander actually said publicly, he said that there's room on the roster for a right-handed hitter, and I believe they're looking for somebody who can play first base at least. So that was interesting to me because the Rays don't often ever state that kind of stuff. They just kind of make their moves, and when it happens, you're like, what in the world? That's kind of a weird thing, But he early in the offseason, I think there was a podcast interview or something where he said that they're going to look to add one. And Mark Topkin of the Tampa Bay Times just recently reported that yesterday, I believe, as well. So I think that will be their main thing they do when the lockout ends. And as far as a hitter, there's all kinds of avenues they could go. One thing I'll say is I'm not expecting, some fans are kind of speculating a valuable young hitter, maybe Andrew Vaughn from the White Sox or Alec Boehm from the Phillies. And I don't think that's exactly realistic. I don't really see a reason for teams like that to give up on a young hitter like that. And also, I'm not sure it makes sense from a cost to value perspective for the Rays to go after a hitter like that, because you can kind of get a cheaper bat who was going to cost way less than somebody like that. And they could very feasibly perform better than them in 2022, because I don't think they're looking for some kind of new player to integrate with their core, really. I think they're going to just make a supplemental add to the lineup and a player who may only be here for 1 year or something like that. So with that being said, I wrote an article on D-Rays Bay that highlighted 20 different hitters, that right-handed bats that the Rays could maybe look to go after. So you could probably just Google something along those lines and it might come up. So you can check that out if you want. But I'll go for a hitter who I actually didn't include on that article, but I'll name drop them in this podcast. And it's an interesting one, and I don't know how realistic it is, but the player himself would be a really good fit for the Rays, in my opinion, and that is Luke Voight of the Yankees. And I'm gonna name him because one, the Yankees reportedly thought that they had a trade done for Voight at the deadline. Like, there was reports saying that one, they were shopping him, like they were trying to trade him, and two, that they actually thought they were going to, but like the team backed out at the last second or something like that. So by all accounts, he's available. There's also rumors that they're looking to upgrade at first base with like Matt Olson or something. So I think he'd be available, but I don't know if the Yankees would ever trade him to the Rays. But maybe they would be willing to do something like that in like a 3-team trade potentially. I don't really know if this is something that could happen, but the player himself in Luke Voight, I think is interesting because the cost to get him shouldn't be that much. He's kind of older and he's dealt with some injuries, and he isn't maybe the same exact hitter that he used to be, but like the skills are still there. The guy has a really good eye at the plate and a ton of power. He led baseball in home runs in 2020, so like it's not like he hasn't had recent success or anything like that. So I don't think it would like break the bank to get him, but I also think there's like enough tools to where he would he would still be a really good hitter. And maybe the Rays, by playing him on kind of more of a part-time basis and DHing him a lot more, and not letting him see as many right-handers and things like that, they could actually keep him healthier by maybe only like targeting 400 plate appearances or something like that. And I think maybe that'd be kind of like the optimal value point for a guy like that. So again, I don't know if they are going to be able to do something like that, but it wouldn't shock me if Voight is traded. And I wonder if he checks all the boxes to what the Rays are looking for. So I don't know. The Rays have done a 3-team trade with the Yankees recently, or kind of recently. If you remember the Steven Souza trade where they traded him to Arizona, the Yankees were actually involved as the third team there, and the Rays ended up getting a prospect, Nick Solak from New York, in that deal. So a prospect is obviously a lot different than an established big league hitter like Voight is. But there's been like, it's not like totally impossible, I guess, is what I'm saying. So maybe I'm holding out a little hope, but that'll be my answer for that one.
I like that a lot, and I would like it even more if the Rays get Voight from the Yankees and then he has like a career season or just performs well against the Yankees, because that would feel really good, like emotionally. But yeah, I think he definitely has the tools. That's an interesting name that they could go after, and he seems someone that they could realistically get, and it's not like some of the things you see on Twitter where it's like, yeah, Vidal Brujan for Juan Soto, who says no? Like it's not like that kind of thing, but some guys in your article like Garrett Cooper, he's one that I like. And yeah, I like Luke Voight though. I think that would be pretty cool too.
I think when you first said it, I was like, oh, a Yankee. But then the more that I sat here and thought about it, I was like, okay, I see where he's coming from now.
I don't know. It's more about that Voight would fit pretty well, but not maybe about how the Rays would actually get him. Because also the Yankees are a team that's probably looking for something to help them win now, like in return in their trades. So like maybe the Rays would have to like deal a pitcher or something like that. So like I don't know if they'd be willing to do that. So
we've got plenty of them.
Yeah. So I don't know about the inner workings of how like a trade like that would be, but I'm gonna be watching to see if Voight actually gets traded or anything like that, because that's somebody who is on my radar.
And just for everyone listening, that the article that he spoke on, we will link that in the description later on at the end. So if you guys want to check it out, but yeah, so kind of the last real big question that I have is what's a hill that you die on as a Rays fan?
Yeah, that's a good question. The Rays definitely, they make a lot of hills for you to choose, I guess. But the one that I'll pick is that I am a believer in that specific pitching roles in baseball are obsolete, and that like when you see these teams that like name an official closer or something like that, or a setup man or things like that nature, I just don't think that is the best way to go about winning games in the big leagues. So I'm very glad that I'm a fan of a team like the Rays, who has no issue pitching any type of pitcher in any kind of situation. And I just think that like being flexible and open to like whatever the best matchup you can get is just so much more optimal to win games than like just having a guy who will only pitch the ninth inning. Now I know that this also requires a good amount of player buy-in, and you need to kind of grab players who are willing to like be flexible like this. But I think as the game evolves, more and more pitchers are going to be more open because more teams are thinking about their staffs in this way. And I think that so earlier this offseason, we saw the Rays sign a reliever in Brooks Raley. I was a big fan of that signing for a number of reasons, but one thing where I think that's pretty interesting is because they're not going to use Raley as like their eighth inning guy. Really, they'll throw him in the ninth, or I could also see them throwing him like in the third or fourth. And I think that they looked at Raley as like a guy who is like great left on left stuff. And when they're in a big game against like the Red Sox and Rafael Devers is coming up, like they're going to want the absolute best pitcher they can for that matchup to get like a big bat like that out, no matter really what inning that happens in. So like that's just kind of like an example of how I think a modern like bullpen should operate, and it's going to give you the best chance to win games. And I think that the Rays do a great job of that. And I'm looking forward. I know it may frustrate some fans, but I'm looking forward to having the revolving door of a closer for the years coming forward.
Oh yeah, I love that too, and it kind of it's like a trademark of the organization at this point. Like in terms of like on the field, like they will put guys in positions where they can succeed regardless of like the context of the game. And I was listening to the Neil Solondz podcast like This Week in Rays Baseball or whatever it's called, and the guy that he had on, he was interviewing someone from the front office. I forgot who it was, but he was talking about how like there's not like really a hierarchy in the front office. It's kind of like everybody contributes in any way they can. Like everybody's opinion is valued, everybody's input is valued, and anybody can be a contributor regardless of your title in the front office. So I think that's pretty cool that they kind of translate that to like on the field. And you got to imagine like in the clubhouse, like players have not like they're not making like decisions on who's playing that day and lineups and stuff, but you got to imagine like their opinions are valued, like their input is valued and their thoughts and stuff like that, because they've had so much success building this. And it's really starting to show like just how a baseball, like a modern baseball organization can be run, not just in terms of on the field, but the behind the scenes stuff too. So it's a good hill to die on.
Yeah. That's a really good point on the front office too, because as you were explaining that on how they kind of have that flat approach where everybody can provide value no matter where you're ranked or perceived as or whatever. I think that, that's like a perfect way to think about like an organizational structure that shows up both in the front office and on the field. It's the same type of thing. Like they've got no problem hitting a batter who none of us have heard of in the 4 spot if they think that's like the best decision for that given day and that given time. And it's the same thing with the pitching staff, and it sounds like they translate that kind of philosophy to the front office too. And I think that's a great way. Trust in your guys, and and the best things will come from it. So
nice, awesome. Well, do you have any questions for us as we begin to start wrapping this up here?
So I got one question for each of you. It's the same question, but I'm curious on both of your answers. So my question is, if, as things stand today, and I guess maybe you can account for like some other maybe minor moves. I'm not really expecting like any crazy like trade or signing moving forward for the Rays. I think the roster is like 90% complete. But given what we know today, how many wins are you projecting the Rays to finish with in 2022?
Ooh. I'll go first because I know Ben is going to have some answer that's probably going to be spot on. So I don't want to go after Ben. I think we're going to be. I can see us winning our division again. Mm-hmm. Do I think we're going to break 100 wins again? I don't know. I see us between 90 to 95 wins would be my guess, because we do have a majority of the same team coming back.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't lose anyone big. I know we traded Brasso, we traded Luplo, but again, Brasso wasn't really, as much as I enjoyed him in 2020, last year he was kind of irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
And we have, a whole season with Franco now. I could see Taylor Walls coming in and playing a role. I think that there's a chance that we repeat and have over 100 wins again next year, but I safely would say between 90 and 95 wins.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's very logical, and I like that answer.
Okay, I agree, but I'm gonna be a little less logical here. I think 100 wins is the floor here. I think we're gonna see anywhere from 100 to 105. It's just most of the players on this team are so young, and they're going to try to take a step forward this year. There aren't really too many players I can see regressing, other than, like you said, the catching situation. Maybe some bullpen guys might have a down year. Who knows? But it's just so many things. I mean, not so many things, but a lot of things went wrong last year with the starters, I guess, and the pitching staff. Not so much the bullpen. The bullpen was pretty solid, but Glass now goes down. Patino was struggling to find his way a little bit. Just had a lot of question marks in that staff, and they still managed to put it together. Michael Wacha, I love him, but he was the performance was good. The results were not very good sometimes. So Yarbrough was kind of in a transition year. So I think winning 100 games with a team that had the struggles that they had, they were still a great team. They were great offensively, but I think everybody's gonna take a little bit of a step forward, and I'm just excited. I think the craziest thing they could do the rest of the offseason might be sign someone like Tommy Pham or Andrew McCutchen. And I think, getting that final right-handed bat would, make me a little bit more confident in saying 105 wins, but I think 100 sounds pretty good. I'm excited for this team, and I don't really see anyone in the division, maybe the Blue Jays, taking a step forward and being a good team, but the Orioles aren't ready yet. The Yankees are, treading water. The Red Sox had a good year, but I feel like their pitching definitely overperformed. So yeah, I think the Rays are still a favorite, and I can definitely see 100 wins.
Yeah, I think those are both great answers. I'll split the difference with you guys, and I'm gonna go in the 95 to 100, I guess. But I agree with you, Ben, that I think that they're in the best situation of any of the 5 AL East teams. I think that I'm expecting them to win the division again. I think that would be pretty unfortunate if they couldn't. I mean, unless you said one of these teams breaks out and wins 103 or something like that, then it'd be tough, and you can't blame the Rays for something like that necessarily. But yeah, I think that, both of you made great points. I think that a lot of the team is coming back, and they've just got such great depth, and I think they'll do their typical savvy, under-the-radar moves and get some sneaky value out of some guys before we start games here, also at the trade deadline probably. But yeah, I think that we're in for another great year of Rays baseball.
I agree with that. So Ben, you said that you were pretty confident in 100 to 105?
I feel pretty confident in 105. I'd feel more confident, when they sign a right-handed bat, but I feel I'd say 97% confident in 100 wins.
You know what would make you feel more confident?
I think I know, but you can go ahead and tell me.
I think if you bought a RBLR shirt at shop.rblrsports.com.
Yeah, I've heard for every shirt that, people buy, the Rays statistically add an extra win to their win total for next season. So I think, anybody that's a real fan would buy a shirt because, you want the team to win more games. So it just makes sense to go to shop.rblrsports.com. And, you could even use the promo code FLAPPY. That's FLAPPY for 10% off your order. That might, help the team a little bit too. But yeah, I liked where we went with that. That was awesome. Good move.
So I appreciate that. Now, Cole, I know that you kind of asked the last question. Is there anything you'd like to plug or anything like that before we jump off here, my man?
I don't think so. You guys were great. I really enjoyed it. I'd love to come back sometime.
Oh, we would love to have you back. I don't know if you saw in the chat, but we've had a great conversation with you, man, and it's been an awesome show with you for sure.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. Let's keep in touch.
Definitely.
All right. Well, don't forget, anybody listening, you can follow us at RBLR Sports on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all the social media things. Don't forget to follow Cole at Raise Metrics on Twitter. Really great stuff he puts out all the time. You can subscribe to our podcast. We're on Spotify. Give us that 5-star review. It takes like half a second. iHeartRadio app, we're on there too. We're also on Apple and Google Podcast. We're on YouTube, other major podcast platforms. We're everywhere. I post, stuff on Reddit sometimes. I write stuff sometimes. I'm just excited for this season, trying to kill some time while the lockout's finishing. So I'll throw it over to Zach for the last word.
Yeah, as always, like Ben said, go ahead and give us a follow. We love hearing from you guys. So if you guys have anything you want to, anything on Reddit, let us know. We'll go over everything you guys want us to. So we appreciate you guys. Love y'all. Go Rays.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.